Hi, I'm Reverend Jessie Brandon. Welcome to Epiphanies. I'm a life cycle celebrant and a metaphysical minister, and I have the opportunity to bring my two loves together, people and books. And I hope you've got your cup of tea or coffee and you're snuggled into your favorite chair, because today we're talking about a fiction book by Ken Follett called The Pillars of the Earth. And it says here that The Pillars of the Earth tells the story of Philip, Prior of Kingsbridge, a devout and resourceful monk driven to build the greatest Gothic cathedral the world has known. And then it's a spellbinding epic tale of ambition, anarchy, and absolute power set against the sprawling medieval canvas of 12th century England. And to talk about this today is my guest, Eileen Sampson. Now, Eileen is a registered massage therapist here in Barrie, and she does complete visceral manipulation. She's also a trainer and teaching assistant, neural manipulation, and craniosacral therapy. Now, I've experienced Eileen's work, and she's fabulous. So please welcome Eileen. Hi, how are you?
Welcome. Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Oh, good. I'm glad. So tell me, why did you choose this book?
I actually don't read a lot of fiction. I read a lot, I study a lot. And my mother read this book and she gave it to my husband, and my husband read it and he was urging me to read it. And I went, I don't read a lot of fiction. And so he urged me to read it again. I said, why? Why do you want me to read this? He said, I really think you'll enjoy it. So he said there was one particular character that reminded him of my father, who is now passed, but just some of his traits reminded him of my father, and it was Tom the Builder.
Ah, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So what particularly drew you to the book? Once you finally picked it up, what drew you? What kept you going?
The story is filled of everything, absolutely everything. There is struggle and complete richness, some people with nobility and power, and then there's the person at the bottom, and there's everybody in between, and some people being very honest and loving, and other people just wickedly scheming. It's full of everything.
Mm-hmm. So it's in the medieval 12th century. Mm-hmm. So tell me what you picked up about that. You were mentioning something to me before we went on camera.
Yes.
So
it's very the architecture, how everything is built. So the character Tom the Builder reminds me of my father. Mm-hmm. My father was a carpenter, and everywhere we went, he was looking up at buildings. Everywhere we went. So we could be in a theater watching a show, and he'd be looking up at how the structure was being put together. Mm-hmm. So that sort of drew me in, and then the humanity of Tom himself and his family.
Mm-hmm. So then I remember you telling me something about the beds, when they made the beds.
Oh, so people who had beds. Yeah. People who had beds. So why anybody has a bed that's high? All the old beds, the poster pillar beds, they're high because to let the rats run underneath so that they can't climb, and the posts are all ornate so the rats can't grab on and climb up.
Oh wow! So and they're made of just stone.
Well, those ones in particular were made of wood. But I've actually, since reading the book, gone to Ireland and been in a medieval castle, particularly Blarney Castle, and the princess's room was just a stone bed, and I guess it would have something rolled out over top of it, but her bed was literally stone.
Wow, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. So how long did it take you to read the book?
Oh, it took me months.
Really?
I have 4 children, so so the timing that you have to get involved in something. Mm-hmm. The interesting part is the day I finished it, I immediately went into the second book sequel, but the sequel doesn't happen right away. It happens 200 years later.
Oh, right. And does it have, is it follow the same story, the ancestors?
Yes, it follows the descendants 200 years later. It follows, and you start to see where the people have had same correlations, same type of characteristics as their ancestors.
So thereby proving genetics.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. So tell me about Tom throughout the story.
So Tom is a builder. He's a stonemason. And he loses a contract to build the house of William Hanley. William Hanley is to be married, but the girl, Eliana, decides that she doesn't want to marry him. So the marriage is off, so the house is off. So Tom and his family have to travel to find new work. And they spend a long time trying to find new work. They spend some time in a little village where they make a penny a day working, to the wife cleaning at a little local tavern, and then they move on, and they have to sometimes stay in the woods and sleep in the woods, forage for their food. They purchased a piglet.
Oh, yeah.
And they feed the piglet and fatten him up, and hopefully eventually will sell him at some point. But along the way, they have outlaws in the woods, and that come and steal the pig and beat their young daughter, Martha.
Oh, no. Now, does Martha live?
Martha does live.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought as I asked the question, maybe I shouldn't, maybe that's important. Is there a particular moment that really struck you in the book?
Moments that strike me in the book, there's many. Many of the things of the poorest of the poor, the richest of the rich, the schemiest of the scheming. This is really historical fiction. It isn't just fiction. Everything about it has been really researched as to what techniques they used for the masonry, what types of things happen. The story of the monks, you spoke about the monks. So what happens is Tom's wife dies, giving birth. And when she dies giving birth, the baby is, nobody can feed the baby. They have nothing. All they have is a turnip to eat for the family. So they can't give the baby that. So he leaves the baby to die with the mother.
Wow.
And it's a really heart-wrenching decision for him. But they're in the woods. And so they have, there's a monastery close by. And somebody comes and picks up the baby and takes it to the monastery. So the baby survives, and Tom ends up building this big cathedral that the Prior Philip is in charge of helping fix. And so what happens is he starts to be able to see his son grow up without saying that it's his son.
Oh, wonderful. So that's the tie-in. He meets the
prior.
The prior, right, there's the word I was looking for, and gets to stay and build the
cathedral.
The cathedral, thank
Yes.
you. I was having trouble with that word. And his son is a part of the monastery that's attached to that whole place. Wonderful. Very cool. One of the things that you also mentioned was the well, you just said they make a penny a day. Can you imagine trying to live on a penny? And then what was their method of travel? How were they getting around?
They walked everywhere. Everything, all their tools in tow. all of his stonemason tools in tow.
So they didn't even have a horse or a wagon or anything?
I believe they had a donkey at one point, and then to carry some things, and then the donkey had to go because they had no money to feed the donkey.
Wow. And how many children did Tom have?
So they had Martha and Alfred, and then this Jonathan, but the wife had lost a couple of miscarriages, stillborn, and another baby that lived till 2 years of age. So,
wow. So it was really tough.
It was really tough and heart-wrenching.
Yeah, had lots of kids, but not all of them survived even. Yeah, that's wild. So tell me some of the things about, like I just opened it here, and he was talking about one of the guards having chilblains, and so he wanted to take a stone out of the fire.
Right.
And so what did they do with these stones?
So that was a fever that they had. So they brought them the warmth. So they would take the stone out of the fire and bring it closer. I actually found that in Ireland too. When I went there, there was a plate that was a hot plate that was put against a fireplace and then would be taken and put to the bed. If you had a bed.
Yeah, if you had a bed. Oh, yeah. So did you have somewhere to stay the whole time you were in Ireland?
Me, yes, a family.
I thought you meant that there was times when you didn't even have a bed there. So that would be weird.
Well, my father's family is from Ireland, and actually they often used to sleep head to foot in a bed.
Well, I know there was 7 girls in my family, and that was certainly the case in the beginning. I know that my sisters talked about how there was 4 of them to a double bed.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Even when my sister went over in 1992, that's what they did. All my cousins, they all went out for a good time.
Yeah.
And then they all slept head to foot instead of going off to the different parts of the country that they lived in. Just stay in one place and
head to foot.
Yeah.
Well, what I was reading when I talked about that with the stones, I know that what they said was that the stones were taken off to boil water, taken off of the stove, and then they would be used to boil water. I just can't imagine the length of time that it took to do everything.
Yes. I know when my mother lived there, my mother was born and raised here. And I know when she lived over there, she had to go to the well for water. And I always thought going to the well for water was, you walk to some place, there's a bucket, you go down like this, grab it. No, that was not what it was like for my mother.
Yeah.
She would have to walk probably 3/4 of a kilometer, and it was a spring, so it was in the ditch of the road. It was a spring in the ditch of the road, and so no running water, no indoor plumbing at the place, and washing by washboard and basin for 2 babies. So this is something that you see in the book here, and it sort of helped me understand what my mother's life, even though it wasn't in the 12th century, what it might be a little bit more like.
Yeah, that would be pretty amazing. I know it's England, not Ireland, but I watch Coronation Street, and I'm always amazed at how tiny the homes are and how everything seems to be in one room.
Yes.
So, yeah. So tell me more about the monastery. How many monks were there? Did it ever say?
Oh, that I forget a lot.
Okay.
But there were many young and old. So what would happen is if the Prior Philip himself was orphaned, so he was brought there as a child, and so the monks raised him. So they're sometimes about 8 years old when they're brought, and they have to learn how to be a good monk through their teenage years, and they explain in there about how growing up and being a dutiful young monk might be very difficult in the teenage years when your hormones are raging.
Yeah. So what was your overall feel for the monastery, and was it a well-run? Was the prior a good prior, or was he one of the schemers?
So Prior Philip was a good man. He sometimes was unsure and got caught up in what his superiors wanted. Sometimes his superiors wanted things that were, in the book, it would speak about for the glory of God.
Yeah.
But it would sometimes be on the back of the poor.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Isn't that the truth? So now I want to talk about you.
Okay.
I want to know what you do in the community. So I've read what your credentials are. Tell me what that looks like. What's an ordinary day like for you?
An ordinary day. So I have an office on Bayfield Street, and I am a massage therapist. I do integrative massage therapy. So I integrate these visceral manipulation, neural manipulation, craniosacral techniques into a massage. So it really gets at the root cause of what somebody's ailment is. So we have these referral patterns of pain that, everybody knows about the heart attack one. You see a man get a heart attack and he grabs his arm and he's got pain going down his left arm. And the reason wedding rings are put on the left hand is because there's a nerve that actually goes from the left hand all the way to the pericardium of the heart.
Oh, really? I mean, I always knew that it was, the finger connected to the heart, but I didn't realize there was an actual path.
There's an actual nerve path. And so what I do is, for instance, if somebody's coming in for a massage and they've got a lot of neck pain, and so in a massage, you should be able to get, in about 3 strokes, you should be able to get enough blood flow in a muscle, and that should be good. In about 6 to 8 strokes, you should be getting some change in tone of the muscle. And if there's no change in tone of the muscle, I start going, okay, what nerve has a reflection into this zone? So, for instance, the left shoulder and neck, C3, 4, 5, has a reflection from the gallbladder.
Interesting.
Via a nerve.
So the left side to the right?
Well, because the gallbladder's nerve, actually, it starts on the left and it migrates to the right as you're in your mummy's tummy.
Yeah.
And so it migrates and it settles there. So the nerve that works the gallbladder is on the left side.
Oh, interesting.
So, for instance, I gave myself a gallbladder headache once.
Really?
Well, probably more than once, but once that I recognized. So the gallbladder can react to daily vexations, irritations, not things that are really important, but like punctuality and, your shoes are in the way and where's my keys and those kind of things. I can remember one day in particular, I have 4 children, trying to corral them to go anywhere sometimes is a difficult thing.
Herding cats?
It is. Yeah. And so what I did this particular day, is I told them that they needed to be ready an hour before they needed to be ready. So when it was an hour and 15 minutes after the time I told them, I'm like, could you just get ready? And got a little upset. And I gave myself this gallbladder headache by getting upset because they were irritating me. And I just, and within 2 minutes of just being upset with them, and I recognized, I went, oh, gallbladder headache, you're doing it to yourself. Maybe time to let that stress go.
So was there any manipulation you could do to ease the headache?
I did, yes. It involves bending over and digging in, and
Yeah.
But this is what I do. I integrate these kinds of things into a treatment. So sometimes the reason somebody has a frozen shoulder that isn't going away isn't because of the muscular in the joint, but because of the pieces that haven't been addressed within the organs that have a relationship to.
Like what?
So the right shoulder, for instance, has relation to the liver, right sinus, right sacroiliac joint, ribs 5 to 10, the thoracic spine numbers 5 to 10, and the right side of the neck.
Okay, so how does a frozen shoulder end up being possibly the liver?
So there's a particular ligament of the liver. If you don't have full movement of it, you don't have full movement of your right shoulder. I'll show you with my shirt.
Okay.
So let's say your restriction is here. you can see that that has an effect on a variety of places. If I turned around, it would go to my back.
Right.
And if this continued, it would go up to my neck.
Up to your neck.
So what I do is I go in and I find that piece and I let go of that piece, and the rest irons itself out over a bit of time. So I start the process and your body takes over, releasing more.
Interesting. So let's talk about one of the reasons that I came to see you is because I have what's called BPR, as brachioradial pruritus, itchy arms, and it's because of nerve damage. So what did you instantly see from that? Because you contacted me and said, I think I can help you.
Yes. So the nerves, so your brain floats in a fluid. And that fluid has a rhythm and a pulse, like a heart rate or a respiratory rate. And a very little bit of that goes through each nerve.
Really?
And so we can feel that pulse if we get to a nerve, just like taking your artery pulse, but it's slower and it's smaller, and you have to be light to feel it.
Yeah.
And so you can feel that pulse. And what we do is we see if it's restricted or not. How far can it move? Which way does it want to go? And so what we do is we stretch it when it's in its on phase, when it's in its expansion phase, and we let it go in its retraction phase. We keep our contact on it, but we let it retract. Rather than irritating it, we stretch it with the body rhythm, with its anatomical, how is the course of this nerve? Which direction does it go? And so we stretch it in and out.
And you can tell that just by touching it.
Yes, it takes a lot of fine touch, a lot of study, and a lot of it's precision work.
Yeah. How long did it take for you to get this course under your belt? Because I know you have many.
Yes. So, so neural manipulation, you already have to be a therapy practitioner, a manipulation practitioner of some kind.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then you go to the course for only 4 days, but you're supposed to read the textbook before you go, which I did, so that you can learn, and you institute, and they do one layer at a time. So the first layer was the central nervous system, and then the next layer was the peripheral nervous system, the upper body, and then the lower body. In March, I'll be doing the cranial nerves.
That's the one I'm interested in.
Me too.
Yeah. You're going to fix my brain. Very cool. So how long have you been a massage therapist?
I've been a massage therapist for 17 years, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Now, have you always been in Barrie?
Always, as a therapist, yes, always been in Barrie. Previous to that, I was a gymnastic coach and fitness instructor.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And where did you do that?
Both in Barrie and in Toronto.
Oh, yeah. So is that what led you from being a gymnast instructor into massage therapy? What was the bridge?
I was just wanting to learn. So I came to Barrie as a gymnastic coach, as a provincial gymnastic coach. Then we moved into, I started to take fitness instruction while I was here. Did a few levels of that, and just wanted to learn more. I had a experience at the hospital with nurses that I thought, nursing might be good, but I've also felt that I might not have the ability to do what I thought was needed. So as a massage therapist, I can create and execute the treatment plan, and refer people back to their doctor if I feel necessary.
Cool. So speaking of creating, can you tell me about a course that you've written?
Oh, yes. So I was seeing many people on my table over and over, depressed off of work, some of them having to move back in with mom and dad into the basement and whatnot. And so I created a program called Springboard to Freedom that helps people move forward when they're stuck in life. It's about 6 weeks, one day a week, or one evening a week, I should say. And what it does is it takes you from a point of stuckness, and we layer body, mind, spirit, and money. And we take a look of how to move you forward, easy things that you can implement daily to move somebody forward and to get them in touch with their spirit again instead of just busy in their brain.
Exactly. And that's ultimately what we're all searching for, is a contact, connection to our spirit. And how long have you been running that course?
I created it in 2014. I had some family things where I needed to address some family things, so I'm back in doing it again in January.
Wonderful, wonderful.